Alex Zobel. I'm a senior English major. Let's see, I'm going to read 3 poems here. Okay, so I guess they say that when baby Plato was born, yeah, see, it's boring, that like a whole swarm of bees landed on his lips, which is, it was supposed to prophesy like the honeyed words which he would speak later on, which is kind of a pretty poetic image for a guy who basically ripped on poetry. So this poem is called Reclamation Flowers. They are not the breath blooming hard against December nights, not a drying bouquet of loofah hung from the shower knob, not a bruise on the knee or on the harder geologies of the face, certainly not an apology, nor where mother's mind goes at the window, staring on wet gardens below. Likewise, relatives of motherhood, images of maidens, and the strange unfolding of pudenda, they are not these. Even O'Keeffe's ashes were cast on a breeze that blew umbrellas inside out, a lily shape but hardly suggesting death. Daffodils don't nod, not even for posy. But what are these words worth if agapanthus will not explode like fireworks or bombs, or the worry that flowers after a night spent balling poems into tight peonies and pitching them into wastebaskets? They are their own end, loud procreation. So here's an end to symbolism and sophistry. Bees left Plato's infant lips fat with honey, yes, and the yellow leavings of pollen. Okay, this next one, is Tanisha still here? I'm gonna do that Bible thing. Yeah. Okay, this is based on Ruth, like very roughly based on Ruth. This is actually more a portrait of my own blasphemous imagination than of the biblical Ruth. I think it's a lot of fun to think about how many different editors and redactors have had their way with the Bible over the years. And it's interesting to think about how much really good stuff is probably cut from that sucker. So I'm just going to depart from Ruth here. I think the book of Ruth in King James is like 4 chapters long. So this is called Ruth chapter 5, verse 1. And it's a sestina. She claimed widowhood, but never for all 6 husbands. For courtesy's sake, we focus on the final one, that bleary-eyed farmer friends called Booze. But chapter 5 didn't make the cut, of course. She wasn't the goody two-shoes James would have you think. Sure, she was good for threshing, and an occasional glean in the old leaves by the 3 hours crowd. Good for seed 3 generations later. Good for a miraculous bullseye, and 6 measures of barley, as noted in our book. With the grief forgotten and kinship revised, she curled like a scythe at the foot of a one-nighter for only an ephah. Truth be told, Ruth was a little too quick to come to the threshing floor, but by 5 she went vague in the gray dawn. Her 5 days' blood abstained, and by the 3rd week in Omer, she knew she needed a slingshot wedding to keep her line entangled. Booze, a 6-pack man by today's standard, whined one night with the old boys who sipped his boast, and before morning sobered, he'd acquired the 4 parcels, an easy hand, and a cold, sandal-bare foot. 5 droughts sent him only dust, and 1 son worth mentioning. The unhappy 3 nursed their demons, Booze wetting his thirst 6 nights a week, Obed at his mother's breast, and Ruth 2-timing her brute with a man named Judas who was twice her age. But not that Judas. It was a popular name for quite some time. She knew which commandment she broke, the 6th, but those stone tablets impressed her less than 2 sin-quains rhymed in a name as a nursery moral fit for her 3-year-old. Their custom was a hard one, especially concerning redeeming and exchanging a hard-won wife. So Ruth left Boaz, as the Bible remembered him, to preserve the line's dignity, of course, and she moved 3 miles south to an unincorporated jerkwater town for some other Judas, not that Judas either. But there's no chapter 5 in our book, and most forget her by 1 Samuel 16. There were 4 or 5 more 6 sons by 2 other women, but no one remembers the 3-sheep man they called Booze. Okay, this last poem is a pantoum, which is freaking hard to write. It is hard. You guys should try it sometime. It's about whale watching, which I imagine is pretty much the same no matter where you are, so it's one of those universal experiences. Pay attention, it's really deep. There's some serious symbolism in the sucker. Whale watching in Monterey. It's really more about waiting. You wait because, well, you have to. I don't really know much about the particulars. I was only 7 years old. You wait because, well, you have to see a whale or it's not whale watching. I was only 7 years old. I was pretty sure I knew the difference. See a whale or it's not whale watching. I don't know what the others called it, but I was pretty sure I knew the difference between whale watching and whale waiting. I don't know what the others called it, but I don't really know much about the particulars. Between whale watching and whale waiting, it's really more about waiting.